of the attack in common practices, and that's how they name different threat actors. So it's probably China. It's probably China, the Chinese Communist Party. Now that they've demonstrated the ability to do this, and they've done it against Taiwan, the Taiwanese government, this is a threat to basically everyone. And unless they close this, this is a human threat, this is an individual threat, this is a business threat, and this is a major government threat. You've even had in the United States where like they've declared emergencies because key infrastructure, California just had a breach like this, by the way. Key infrastructure is being breached by Chinese hackers, and they can cause trouble. It's going to get even worse now because you even have publicly available artificial intelligence, including repositories that you can download locally on your computer, and including foreign ones, like the ones the Chinese Communist Party is releasing, that don't have the same guardrails as the ones run under U.S. law, where these are publicly available. And you can have some random, unethical hacker, not even an advanced hacker, where you're basically handing them a digital nuclear weapon, and you're saying, don't do anything I wouldn't do, ha ha, like wink wink, right? You're handing what could be the equivalent of a nuclear weapon to a bunch of cavemen and telling them don't cause any problems with it. Like that's where things are at when it comes to artificial intelligence, national security, and artificial and hacktivism and so on like that. You're giving them a very powerful weapon by making these things public and not having guardrails preventing them from carrying out attacks like this. This is a very important cyber attack, and maybe we'll see if it changes anything, but we'll have to see. Another topic, could the United States keep the Strait of Hormuz? Well, Trump is saying maybe, and I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break. So he says, the USA has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. I think we will keep it. This is actually a very big deal. I'll explain in a bit. But he says, our naval blockade is being called by everyone a wall of steel, and there is nothing Iran can do about it. They have no navy, they have no air force, the remaining soldiers are unpaid, the IRGC is decimated and fleeing, and their leadership is uncertain at best. He says they have no money, their country is shot, all they have is fake news and 300% inflation, and getting worse. But Trump says Iran is all talk and no action, the bully of the Middle East no longer. You could also argue that he's saying that, they're a threat to the entire Middle East, and there are a lot of Middle Eastern countries that are victimized by the terrorists funded by Iran, right? That is a reality too. So he says, hey, this is good for you guys too. Why does this matter? In very real terms, I've actually been saying what the Chinese Communist Party does not want, because I think right now that their intent is to actually drag out this war. Let me explain a bit of background, then I'll explain a bit of what's happening. When Trump created the counter-blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, effectively what he did was stopped Iran from selling oil, right? So Iran is blocking oil from most of the world. It's blocking oil from the United States. Well, we don't get oil from there anyways. But oil prices are set globally, right? Blocking oil from Europe mostly, blocking oil from most countries, but still selling oil to countries willing to buy sanctioned oil illegally, mainly India and China. India's kind of a neutral country. They're not really, they're a BRICS country. They're kind of friendly with us, but they're a neutral country. They're not really our allies, per se, in terms of where they stand. So they buy this stuff, and that's just how they operate. They're very close to Russia and so on like that. Selling it mainly to India and China, right? And so when Trump blocked this oil, when he did the counter-blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, effectively what he did is he stopped Iran's ability to give oil to China. In India, it's kind of another issue entirely, but mostly just China, right? India is not really a military threat to us, just making that clear. Like, this is mostly about China. So I think what Trump was trying to do was force the Chinese Communist Party to diplomatically pressure Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The CCP, I think, has witnessed something else, which is most of the far left in the United States, the socialist movements, these, the takeover of the Democratic Party, the far left movements in the United States, a lot of which gets China money. They want the socialists, and they want to primary all the Democrats, and then they want to gain enough of a foothold in the House of Representatives where they can exert control, get rid of the Senate, and basically have themselves appoint the president. They want to appoint the president of the United States, and they want to appoint the Supreme Court justices if they can gain control of the House. That's what the socialists are trying to do right now. It's in their public statements. They're not even lying about it. So this is kind of their coup d'etat they're launching within the United States right now, right? A lot of groups with foreign money, a lot of the grassroots has CCP money, a lot of it has ties to Cuba, as the State Department under Marco Rubio has now disclosed, including Democratic Socialists of America. He's saying that basically, even though there's no monetary tie, that their ideology is all based on Cuban military intelligence operations. Groups like Code Pink, Party of Liberation and Socialism, they get this foreign directive type stuff and foreign money too. So that's kind of the movement right now, right? I think they're realizing if they can get Trump out of office, and even better for them, if they can primary the Democrats, take over the House of Representatives, they can effectively alter our entire form of government. The publicly stated agenda of DSA is to, again, have the House of Representatives expand the districts so they have even more, have the House of Representatives then eliminate the defense budget, so America's military will be defunded, defund the police, no more security here, eliminate the Senate, so they would control all of Congress. Then they want to have them in the House appoint the president, so you don't vote for the president, and they want to have them in the House vote for Supreme Court justices and other people too. So if they can take over the House of Representatives at the local level, they control the entire country. That's their publicly stated agenda. Why does that matter? That's also the CCP's model. That it's a Maoist agenda. So Mao Zedong referred to this strategy as, he called it surround the city with the countrysides. You use the local level to take over the larger level. And so if you can gain control of the city, or so the countryside, all of the small districts, you can use them where you don't need to win the major elections. So this is, I think, how they're kind of gerrymandering it. The CCP realizes the two biggest drivers for the election are going to be this. One is negative perceptions of Trump, and they're heavily using the Israel narrative and the Trump working with Israel narrative is kind of one of the big, and American militarism and warmongering and all this stuff. They're using that as their main political narrative, right? That's the main driver for a lot of these campaigns. And if you go online, that's what you see all over the place. They're using that because they think that will capture most of the left and most of the far right, meaning they're dividing the conservatives using these narratives, and they're also establishing a base within the left using these narratives. So it's a very useful political weapon for them. And then they're assessing the other big driver is going to be economics, the economy, affordability, gas prices, everything else. So if they can keep the Strait of Hormuz locked down, keep the conflict going, it's a political tool which can alter the outcome of the midterm elections. I think it's because of this that the CCP has now gone against one of America's red lines, and they're supplying anti-air weapons to Iran, man-pads, shoulder-fired anti-air missiles. And they're doing that to eliminate American air control. Effectively, what that would mean is we can't run Warthogs, the A-10s, we can't run most of our helicopters, any kind of low-flying jet, probably with the exception of fifth generation. You really risk, you have a big risk if you try running them if they have man-pads. And so that will limit our air control, our air superiority. The CCP is supplying them with that. If they can shoot one of our guys down and they get a hostage, it's going to create a diplomatic crisis in time for the midterms. And so I think the CCP is actually now trying to drag out the war and cause a conflict because it's a political narrative that is very advantageous to the far left in the United States, to the movements they're kind of backing right now and pushing. And it's also useful for the financial narrative, the economy. And they could actually swing the elections using this. But the other side of it is this. What the CCP also does not want is for the United States to maintain control of the Strait of Hormuz. Why is that? They get a lot of their oil from Iran. And now that we're able to sanction and prevent some of the Russian oil from being sold, it's unless they can develop a northern channel or develop better channels going through like the Russian mainland into China, which they have a bit, but not nearly enough. It's going to be very hard for the CCP to get the oil they need to even function as a country. And if America controls the Strait of Hormuz, we control the gas valve, so to speak. We decide whether they live or die, basically, when it comes to that. And so America maintaining that and keeping security of it is something they absolutely don't want. And I was actually saying pretty early on, actually it would be in American interest, although not for the midterms. But aside from the midterms, it would be in America's interest to actually maintain control of that strait. Well, everyone, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us. And as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free.